Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we are comparing two pens, the Pilot Custom Heritage 912 and the Sailor Pro Gear, like the standard size one. These are two very visually similar pens. They've got some really lovely unique features, but they're both from two of the great Japanese pen brands of the last century. So I thought it was a really fun comparison today, seeing as though they are, as I said, visually somewhat similar. To do a bit of a comparison following my new comparison format. So please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If this kind of content is of interest to you, please consider joining my channel as a member, where for a small monthly fee, you will get priority comments, you'll get members only content, you'll get early access to my videos, and once we've grown the community a bit, I'll start doing some members only Q&As. In the meantime though, let's look at these two pens from Sailor and Pilot. So here we are with these two excellent pens today, the Pilot Custom Heritage 912 and the Sailor Pro Gear Standard. So you can see the Sailor Pro Gear is shorter, but generally speaking, they have a lot in common. They both have flat ends, chrome furniture, which kind of like matches up, including that, double cap band with the thin band and the larger band, with the larger band having the engraving on it. They're both twist caps, which is great. And they're both Japanese made pens with gold nibs, 21 karat on the Sailor, 14 karat on the Pilot. The Sailor does have its little anchor logo on the top there, and there's nothing on the Pilot finial. But we're going to run through these pens in my little setup that I've done for comparisons, where I pit, quality against quality, if you will. Before we get into that, let's just quickly talk about the dimensions so we get all that sort of cleared up first. The grip section of both pens at its sort of middle point is 11 millimeters. So it's the same width section. Same as the widest point on each cap being about 15 millimeters. In terms of capped lengths, we have 131 for the Sailor and 141 for the Pilot. So 1 centimeter difference in it. Uncapped and unposted, we have 126 for the Pilot and 117 for the Sailor. So once again, the Pilot being longer in that format. Both pens do post, and both post very nicely. In fact, I would go so far as to say both of these I prefer to write with posted, but I can write with the Pilot unposted a little more comfortably. But posted, we have 150 and 157 millimeters. So those are the dimensions. In terms of weight, they're both about 25 grams. So I think, obviously perhaps the Sailor's material is a little heavier quality there. That's basics. As I said, they're both cartridge converter pens, both use proprietary converters. So the Pilot I have with a Con 70, which is I suppose the better of the Pilot converters, because it's you've got a higher ink capacity, and then there's the standard Sailor converter in here. I don't love either. In fact, I would say for both of these, refilling cartridges is a much nicer way of going about it. I just have converters and it's just easier. I just don't get great capacity. And that Con 70 in the Pilot is a pain to clean. So that's the basics. Let's now talk about these criteria I've set up. So we're going to start with build quality. And this is what I'm going to give, a point to each. It's hard to split them. Yes, the Pilot probably has the slightly heavier weight plastic in it, and to my touch has slightly smoother threads, but there's a little bit more sort of slack in them, whereas the Pilot, the threads aren't quite as smooth, but they're not quite as loose, if you will. I also prefer the clip on the Pilot to the clip on the Sailor. It's just a little bit more firm. It feels a bit more secure. So 1 point to each for build quality. Now, in terms of finish and aesthetic, once again, it's really hard to split these. They're both black acrylic or plastic pens basically with silver or chrome colored trim. I do like the little Sailor logo on the top there, but I also prefer the shape of the Pilot clip. And then in terms of the cap bands, I think the Pilot having sort of slightly more subtle engraving than the big double engraving on the Sailor, to me is just a slightly cleaner look. So I find it really hard to split those. So once again, that's just going to be 1.2 each. Okay. Let's now move on to the next category, which is price and value. And I'm going to give this one to the Pilot just because it's cheaper. Yes, it's not cheaper by a whole lot, and prices are fluctuating at the moment. So when I quickly checked the prices online the other day, I could see prices from $4.25 to $5.35 for the Pilot. That's Australian, and $5.15 to $5.75 for the Sailor with the 21 karat gold nib. So the 21 karat gold nib will add a bit more price. So there is value in that. But in terms of the writing experience of the 14 to the 21, especially seeing as though this is a hard medium on the Sailor, really that gold content isn't making a whole lot of difference in the performance. So I'm just going to give this as a point to Pilot because it is ever so slightly more affordable. Now, let's talk about availability. I'm going to give this one to Sailor. There are retailers in Australia and in a whole lot of countries all over Japan and the US and through Europe that sell both of these pens. But one thing that Sailor does really well in terms of this pen is the fact that it has a whole lot of different versions. It does store exclusives, it does North American exclusives, it does all these sorts of things. So there is a little bit more variety around. So I'm giving that as a point to Sailor for availability because both of them are available. I could go to, there's a couple of shops here in Australia, in Melbourne and Sydney, where I could just go and buy one. So not a problem there. Okay, now let's talk about nib performance. And for this, I'm going to do a little writing sample. So this paper here is 80 GSM Rhodia. I'm just going to do a little writing sample on the side here. And we'll start with the Pilot. And this has a medium nib. And the ink in both of these is Diamine Imperial Purple. Same ink for both pens. So this is insanely smooth. You can hear how smooth that is. In terms of softness, there's not a whole lot going on. In terms of wetness, it's pretty decent, but it is exceptionally smooth. It writes so beautifully under its own weight. It's just a gorgeous pen to write with, as is the Sailor, but it is a very different writing experience. So we have the Sailor Pro Gear with its hard medium nib. Now, one thing I will say is aesthetically, I do quite like the gold content on the Sailor face of the nib. But one thing I will say is that in a pen that is all, chrome colored trim, which are both of these are, I think the aesthetic of the all chrome colored gold nib does look much nicer, as much as I love having the two-tone nib on the Sailor there. Like, you can hear the feedback on that nib. It's very typical of Sailor, and it is exceptionally reliable, but it is feedbacky. Softness, there's a little bit more bounce in this one, but it's nowhere near as smooth as the Pilot. And in terms of wetness, I would say it's much of a muchness between the two. So what is it going to come down to? Well, look, we have to go, for me, I'm going to go on smoothness and reliability as the main features of these two nibs. Both are insanely reliable, but in terms of smoothness, ease of writing, the joy of writing, this one goes to Pilot. I just like it more. If this was the King of Pen nib that I have on my Sailor King of Pen versus, say, the custom Urushi, from Pilot, that may be a bit different situation. Maybe that's a comparison for another day. But in terms of these two, it's going to Pilot. The next category I have is Ergonomics, and this one is also going to Pilot. I can write with the Sailor unposted and it fits in my hand just well enough, but it is a little small. So I do have to post that, and it posts really nicely. It's very comfortable, not an issue there at all. But the Pilot, I can write with that one unposted much more comfortably over long periods. I've done so much writing with this pen. It is crazy how much writing I've done with this pen. I've had it a little over a year, and it's done converter after converter full of ink. And a lot of that is unposted. It's just very comfortable. Posted, still insanely comfortable. The balance is still great. The way it posts to sits very comfortably. It's just an all-round great size in the hand. So Ergonomics, go to Pilot. I think you're starting to see a trend here as to where this comparison is going. And yes, it is so personal. It is my opinion. I get that, but this is my YouTube channel, and I suppose you come here for my opinion, not a generic, opinion. This is for my take on these things. Okay. Design and concept is the next category, and once again, hard to split. They both are very, very similar, but that little extra length again, once again, in the 912 just makes this a very lovely pen. It is great in the hand, and that is not an accident. It's made to a particular very comfortable length, and that design pays off. And then my final wildcard category, if you will, is the thing I'm calling the X Factor. And that, to me, goes to Sailor. The X Factor Sailor has is the range of colors of the pen that are available. I had a number of the Sailor Pro Gears over the years. I think I've still got a Slim and obviously the King of Pen. The King of Pen I've got in black and chrome. But I've had a few other Pro Gears over the years, and in different colors, different combinations. I had a really lovely sort of, I think it was like light and dark blue sort of colored version for a while. And then there was a yellowy white colored one. But they were in nibs that just didn't suit me. So I sold them off, and this is the only Pro Gear I have left. This is my color scheme, black and chrome. That's what I like. We all have what we like, and this is what I like. So the X Factor goes to Sailor just because there is such a variety. You can get so many different, color combinations and things depending on what is your taste. Let's talk about a couple of quick pros and cons for each of these. Pros for the Pilot. That nib is uber smooth, like crazy. A pro for the Sailor is actually its size in a way, and that is that it fits between that pocket pen and full-size pen. So if you've got smaller hands, or if you are wanting a pen for a particular, pen case or whatever, the Sailor is going to be a great fit for you. But for me, my personal take, it's the size of the 912 that really wins out here. Pros for both the nibs on both of these pens, the range of nibs. Like, there's a couple of 912 nibs that I'm really keen to get. For instance, I really, really want to get a Posting. I'd love to get a Waverly. They're just beautiful, beautiful nibs. I don't care for the softer nibs, things like that. That's not my jam. But I am interested in like the Posting for that super extra fine kind of line. And the range on the Sailor nibs is awesome. The history of both companies is great. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for over 100 years, and it shows in every pen they produce. I'm not saying every Pilot pen you get is going to be perfect. There are going to be some duds. I'm not saying every Sailor nib and pen is going to be amazing. There will be duds. There'll be ones that do not suit you. There'll be ones that are just plain bad. The QC is never going to be 100%. But these companies do know what they're doing. And also, they're super classy looking pens. Like, they are both, for me, this is a very classy, classic look. Flat top black with the chrome trim. Very, very nice. There are a couple of cons for each. The con in the Sailor's category for me is that feedback on the nib. It's just a little too much for me. Like, I haven't touched that nib in terms of smoothing it out. I could probably do some work on it, or send it to, Incision, Daniel over there, and get it to be the most remarkable nib. it's nice. It's just a little too feedbacky for my taste occasionally. Like it really, also if you put a dry ink in there, forget it. But generic cons across both, the price, you're talking around the $500 mark for each of these. That's a lot for a cartridge converter pen. Yes, it's a gold nib, but it is just a plastic pen with silver or chrome trim. It's a lot of money. Like, these are verging on that luxury pen sort of price point, in my opinion. And the other con with each is the converters for each. But they're bad for different reasons. Like the Con 40, let's say, for Pilot, the standard sort of piston converter, the capacity on that thing is rubbish, but they work like well. They don't seem to fault too much, all that kind of stuff, but the capacity is terrible. The Con 70, like I have in here, like, yes, you get a great capacity, but it's a pain to clean. It's not my favorite. Like, people love this. I understand that. It's just not for me. And then the Sailor converters are just bad quality. They take maintenance that is beyond what I care to put in. They break down. They're expensive. So the converters for these are not great. So as I said at the start, refill your cartridges. Get an ink syringe. Fill your cartridges with whatever ink you like and put them in these pens. So summing all of that up, where does my heart lie? Where am I going? 9 times out of 10 on these, if these two pens are sitting on my desk, I'm going for the Pilot. It's just that little extra length makes it insanely comfortable in my hand. I love how smooth that nib is. And, you know, I'm a devoted Pilot fanboy, really. And I am not ashamed of that at all. I will scream Pilot from the rooftop every day of my life. I think they make amazing pens. I love what Pilot do. I love what Sailor do. But for me, Pilot, over almost any other pen brand on the planet, it's about Pilot. And so for my taste, my personal feelings across those criteria, it comes out at 6 to Pilot, 4 to Sailor. So today, Pilot wins. So splitting those two pens is very difficult. They're both really, really great pens. Both have huge followings and have a lot going for them. My personal preference is Pilot. I love Pilot pens. That little bit of extra length makes it a very comfortable pen, and being able to write with it unposted more comfortably is a real advantage for me. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, and as I said, please consider joining my channel as a member and keeping this all going for you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.